All right, hello everybody. I don't know who all can see us, but hello.
Nobody yet. Hello, yeah.
Okay, so we'll get a notification as people come in.
I
Thank you.
believe so. What's going on, everybody? How you all doing today?
Doing fantastic, doing fantastic.
Doing pretty good.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so I am Lyndon Bridge, your host. Let's see, we got feedback. Let me make sure I shut down all my other screens. So my apologies.
Okay, you know what? Since Lyndon, I think he went to the back room. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves uh, for anybody that may be watching online. Um, since I'm on mic, I guess I'll start. My name is Dennis Brim. I'm with Prestige Partners Realty. I'm a broker. Been in business since April 14th, 2000. Um, all right, I'll pass the mic to Doc.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So, my name is Dr. Darisha Chaplin. Sorry if my voice is kind of squeaky. You guys, I have a little cold going on, but I always like to show up. So, I have been a realtor. I just hit my 2-year mark this past July, so I'm still new in the game. I am licensed in Texas and Arkansas. I'm with EXP Realty, and I service the Texarkana locations. Hopefully, I'll be selling in DFW soon.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I am Hashim Malik Bey. I got a multitude of things that I do, but for tonight, we're just talking about the loan side, the mortgage side. So I've been on this side of the fence for 7 years now. Um, been on this side of the fence 7 years. I'm licensed in multiple states. I can't even tell you how many. I think 13 or 14 come to pass. But I do a lot of work here in the DFW area. Do a lot of work for first-time home buyers. Do a lot of education for first-time home buyers. Do a lot of down payment assistance programs. Tomorrow, actually, we got a closing for one of our new clients. We saved them $75,000 on their down payment and purchase. So we're super excited about that. Just a lot of good stuff here in the DFW area.
All right. Greetings, Lee. We see you in there.
Awesome, awesome. Can you all see and hear me? Am I here?
Yep. You're
Okay.
Yes,
there.
see,
Don't know what happened. I dropped off. I appreciate you all jumping in and taking things under control and under your wing while we got started. I will be your host today for everyone attending. I am Lyndon Britt. I'm a licensed financial professional and also the author of Don't Retire Broke. And we're going to be bringing an important conversation to you all about the misconceptions of home ownership. So, I had the opportunity to be able to get a little information about each one of these professionals and their own means, but we're going to get down to the meat and potatoes. All right, we're going to talk about some important stuff that isn't discussed in communities, or even, like I said, misconceptions of what we hear about home ownership. So the first thing I'll start off by asking some of my panelists, again, appreciate you all, each and every last one of you, taking your time to step away from your business and your family to spend time with us to be able to educate our communities. But I'm going to start with that by asking you what drew you to the profession of real estate. All right, and I'll start with Dr. Darisha, if she doesn't mind starting things off and kind of kicking things off for us.
No, I don't mind. Thank you. So what got me into real estate, I've always had a passion for it. I remember when I was young, I used to watch, the real estate shows. I'm a big fan of Chip and Joanne games. So, but I just like helping people. When I bought my first house 3 years ago, I had a fairly good experience. It's a lot of things that I learned. Um, and a lot of mistakes along the way. So I got into real estate so I could help other families not make those same mistakes that I made, to educate them, to help them and just be the voice for them, because I feel like even with the transition that's happening right now in real estate, I just feel like you have to be very transparent with your clients. And so I feel like with my professionalism and honesty that I'll be able to help a lot of families, buy their first homes, because it's not about the money for me. It's truly about helping others. So I just like serving my community. So that's why I got into it.
Okay, awesome. Well, definitely appreciate you. Now we gonna go into some details. I want to find out what brought Mr. Hashim and Mr. Dennis into the profession as well. So we got to come back to one of the key things that you said. As you got your own home, you want to help them avoid some of the mistakes that you made. So we want to find out what some of those mistakes may have been. So of course you can be able to help people avoid those. All right. So Mr. Brim, we'll actually come to you, Mr. Dennis. What actually brought you to the real estate profession?
I could really copy and paste with what Dr. Chaplin said. Just having a knack for helping people making one of the biggest decisions they'll make in their lifetime. And that's, where you're going to live or what property to purchase.
Okay. All right. And for you, Mr. Hashim, could you chime in on that? You're muted. If you don't mind unmuting yourself.
All right, hold on. That was the secret sauce I gave up first, right? So for me, my path is a little bit different. I'm second generation real estate investor, right? So both my father-in-law and my father, both real estate investors. So my segue into the industry was a little bit different. So I got my first taste of real estate, participating in what we now call, I guess we call them flips now. Then it was just foreclosures, right? We would buy properties that people were losing in the Denver market. And what was always wild to me was most people were losing big properties for small amounts of money, right? And, so what I had to do, I think in the first year, was I go on appointments with my father-in-law, and we sit at people's kitchen tables and walk through, could you save your house on your own? If we save your house, this is what it looks like, or is there anything that we can do at all? And, it came down to, I think probably after 4 or 5 years of sitting at people's kitchen tables and looking, I realized that most of us in our community are on the fringes of the economy, right? We are making just enough money to make it, and all we need is one disruption in our income or health or something like that, and we're spiraling out of control, right? We don't have enough assets to draw upon, whether it be liquid assets. We may not even be financially sophisticated to know that you can just call your lender and talk to them and say, look, this is what my situation is, give me some play. And so I got into doing real estate education, right? We made a lot of money doing foreclosures. Now, I'm not like the rest of y'all. I want to make some paper, right? And what it did was it gave me a basic education to understand that most people had the same kind of problems. There's usually a little bit more month than there is money, right? And it's the creativity that's missing, because when your stuff is upside down, you can't think straight, right? You're trying to figure out, how do I keep everything on at the same time while you're trying to figure out how to make some new money? And so I did 2 years with a nonprofit company, NACA. You guys have probably heard of them. Best education I ever had about really working with people to help them build budgets and do all of this kind of stuff. And so the education piece for me is the only reason why I do it. I'm compensated because I know what I'm doing, right? But the education, when I look at it, I said, my first deal I ever did was back in '92. And I was just doing small stuff at the time. I was mostly just kind of learning how to talk to people. I was a little shy. I never want to ask anybody, what's going on with your finances, what's your credit score, and all that kind of stuff. Now I don't care. I'm gonna start off with what's your credit score look like, how much money you got in the bank, what you doing with your cash. And if the answers are wrong, I'm done. I'm sorting people, right? I don't have the time to play around with people that are not serious about their finance. But in this particular case, so 2000 comes around, so we had the .com bubble, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of our people got into houses in the late 90s and got out of houses in the 2000s. We get back into houses again, and then by 2008, we got the great transfer of wealth, right? All that equity and all them exotic loans we got into, we're right back where we are. So we've been going through this kind of a 7-year cycle. And so I spent most of my time really just trying to help people hedge what they're going to do with the money they have now to get them through the next cycle. So we're in one of those cycles right now. So I don't know if I gave you a long answer for a short question, but that's what I got.
Indeed, but hey, you provided some information in there, of course, that I hope some kind of stood out to some folks. Now, coming back to, as I stated, what we talked about, Miss Dr. Darisha, she said she wanted to help some people avoid a few things. Now, for everybody watching us live, I need y'all to understand this is not a scripted interview. This is actually going to be a real conversation. So if you have questions, make sure you drop them in the comments. I want to see if we can get those addressed for you, especially if you have questions or if you've heard certain things about real estate. So make sure you all are tuning in live. This is an actual conversation that we're having, all right? So Dr. Darisha, what were some of those mistakes that you say you experienced when you purchased your own first home that you want to help people avoid? You don't have to go through all of them, but at least some main ones that really stood out for you.
Well, the main mistake was, and this may sound like a mistake that most people are like, oh, well, she should have known that. Well, I did know it. So I did do my research. So I did not get an inspection done on my home. I bought a house without an inspection. So
Okay.
as soon as I could, how Mr. Hashim is, that's how I know better.
Yeah,
So, but I did not know the real estate part of real estate. So I thought the appraisal and the inspection was the same because what I was Googling and I asked my realtor at the time, hey, is the appraisal and inspection, is it the same? And she was like, well, it kind of is, but it's kind of not. She was like, the inspection, it goes more in depth detail. That's what she told me. So the whole time I'm like, okay, so I really don't need the inspection. I don't need to pay this $600 if the VA is going to do me a appraisal because I had a VA loan. So,
ooh,
and then also she was working both sides. She was representing me and the seller.
oh,
Okay.
Wow.
yeah,
So
Okay.
that's why I say transparency and honesty comes into play. So here I am, excited. Okay, I'm gonna get my first home. When we walked through the house, the garage door, I was like, "Hey, does the garage door work?" And she was like, "Yes." So the day that I closed on my house, get the keys to my house, that's the day I found out everything was broke.
Wow.
So a month in, I at least spent $10,000 getting stuff
Wow.
fixed in my house. The garage doors cost me like $3,600. Then I found out that there were other issues throughout the home, all because I didn't get an inspection, but because my realtor did not educate me, I just didn't know. I thought the appraisal and the inspection was the same. So once I went through real estate school and learned the difference and learned the ins and outs, I told myself, when I sit down with my clients, and trust me, Miss Hashim, I like to make money too. Trust
right,
me, we all get into it for the money at the end of the day as well when it comes to land, okay?
right,
But I was like, I don't want my clients to have to go through what I went through because, just like Mr. Brim said, this is probably the biggest debt that you're going to put on your credit score. So at the end of the day, you have to make sure you can maintain the house. So that was just a big lesson learned.
right.
And like I said, I read through the contract. So I had read through the contract and I wasn't comfortable. I was like, is it? So throughout the transaction, I asked her multiple times, was there a difference between the two? And I was told that they were both the same. So that's why I got into real estate to help other families, especially single mothers, because I'm a single mother and I understand the hardships of life, especially when it's just one income coming into the home. Nobody has money, to be out here wasting. So at the end of the day, I just feel like when it comes to being a real estate professional, you need to make sure that you are conducting yourselves with honesty, integrity, because that's what I live by. I mean, I'm also military background. So I was raised by military parents and I stand on, how you treat people. So when it comes to my clients, I treat them like my kids. I'm going to go the extra bat for them, but I'm also going to educate them and I'm going to be their voice, as I stated. So that's the mistake I made. Very transparent about it. No hard feelings on the realtor that did assist me with my home either. Not talking bad. That's why I'm not putting names out there, but I'm just stating, the facts of what happened when I was buying my house.
Don't throw them out there. We not throw them under the
No,
bus.
I don't like throwing people out there. So if they're watching this, no hard feelings.
But hey, you heard it live. So I want you all to have an understanding that license is one thing, or that having that certification, that license is one thing, but you still need to be careful who you're listening to. All right. So that is one thing you must understand. Just because someone has that license doesn't mean they have your best interest in mind. So I'm not saying she didn't have her best interest, but make sure you're educated about it. All right. So we're going to go to a question for Mr. Brent. We headed to you, man. Can you obtain a house with a low credit score? You know, a lot of people say you got a low credit score, you can't get a house. Is that true? Is that a misconception?
If you don't mind, I'm going to defer that question to, um, give me
Mr.
the,
Hashim?
yeah, Hashim. But before that, we got a question from the floor that I can answer, just so we
Okay.
won't keep him waiting. Um, so the question was, would you would you say not to rush buying a home since overlooking things can be costly? Um, I would you say not to rush buying a home? You should never rush buying a home. However, I also want to say that time in the market beats timing the market, meaning quicker you buy real estate, quicker you can have an asset that will appreciate. But you should not rush the process of obtaining a home. And I mean, like Doctor was saying earlier, representation matters. Who represents you matters. The quality of information you're getting matters. That's a misconception that all realtors are created equal, or that you can do a deal without a realtor. Uh, it's possible to do a deal without a realtor, but the value that a realtor provides should um, over it should bring more value than what you save by not using a real estate professional. So
Can
I
I
hope
add?
that
I'm
answers
sorry,
your
Mr. Brim,
question.
when you
And
finish.
I'm gonna hand it off to you anyway for the to answer the question.
All right. I think if I can, I want to step back to what Doc said, because there are a couple things to unpack in that statement. Not get because when you have an appraisal and an inspection, there is an inspection portion of the appraisal, right? That's just the physical exterior, interior look of the property, just notating what you see and the condition that it is as they inspect it, right? And I think I did a deal or two early on, and I didn't know the difference between the two. So that was number one. You have the inspection is probably the most important thing that you do, more than anything. If you got to, if you got to drain the change out your couch to pay for it, it's worth every dime. And if you have if the inspector will allow you to tag along, that's even better. If some inspectors are a little different, they don't really want you all in the mix like that, but they will give you a detailed report. The second piece of what you were saying, Doc, is when you have an agent doing dual agency representing both sides, that's usually the area where you have problems, right? In typical, no representation, poor representation, and dual agency, usually somebody's getting screwed. And I'm generally speaking, but usually somebody's getting screwed in the mix because we got to take into consideration the agent's personal greed factor, right? Their personal economy is going to dictate the way they move. Now, what should have happened in your case, there should have been a list of disclosures for the property. So that realtor that was representing you and the seller should have gone through with the owner and walked through all the stuff and said, to the best of there's a whole addendum page that says, to the best of your knowledge, everything you've disclosed, everything that could be wrong with this property. Now, people may not know what's going on with their pipes and all that kind of stuff, but you got a whole, in your title policy that covers that kind of stuff, right? So there's a possibility you could have gone back and sued that agent for misrepresentation, errors and omissions, right? And these are things that we don't, most of us don't know how to use these instruments because, let's be honest, when you see that stack of paper that's this high and it's 11 by 17 and the print is 8-point font, right? And the person is sitting there, say, sign here, initial here, sign here, initial here. We don't read that stuff. We just want to sign because what they do is they put the keys in the middle of the table and all you can look at is them keys. You want them keys to jingle, right? And we think the person that we're paying 3% it's got our best interests at hand. They have their economy at hand, right? So this the point that you're making is so important. I kind of want to spend a little bit of time on it, right? Anybody could do what you did. That's super easy. You were lucky it was only 10,000, right? Sometimes people don't disclose that they got sewer problems. Sometimes it's other
Roof,
kinds of things that are
roof
floating
leaks.
back there. Yeah, roof leaks, termites, it's all kind of stuff. I mean, if you had termites, it was done, right? We bought a house here, or me and my wife bought a house about 5 years ago, and my wife is a realtor, right? So we both sides of our family real estate investment all the way, thick and thick through and through. And she negotiated. Now we got the inspector out there, and he got on the roof and said, the roof is getting a little old. You could change it, this and that. She went to him and said, listen here, we're not buying this house unless you change the roof out, right? The owner was like, nah, I'm not going to pay for it. I just spent 50,000 doing upgrades and getting it up to speed and all this kind of stuff to get you to buy it. I'm not going to do the roof. She said, no problem. She looked at the MLS and said, this house sat on the market for 100 or 200 days, however, whatever it was. It was at least 3-4 months, right? And she said, let me put you up on game. You can call your insurance company and put in a claim for the roof, and they'll replace the roof. You sell the house, the roof is paid for, it don't cost you anything. There's no marks against you. You keep on moving. We got a $20,000 roof in our house because we know to ask these kinds of questions. This ain't stuff that people know on a regular basis, right? So we got a brand new roof. Didn't cost the owner anything and didn't cost us anything. Now, going to that other piece, when it comes to that representation, when your realtor leaves you out there like that, there's probably some other stuff that wasn't disclosed that should have been. Garage doors and stuff like that is stuff that the owner, because if the owner lives in the house, they know the garage door is working now, right? That is, and I think that errors and omissions policy is good for a couple of years, right? I'll go scrape them papers up and look through that stuff, have the attorney look through it because it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? It's worth it. People take advantage of what is not on the page, not what's on the page. It's the information that's not on there that usually costs us a lot of money. Now, my next point would be the mistake that I made purchasing real estate. I did two things. I went to the closing without my dad, and I didn't advocate for myself. So I'm buying a house. First off, when me and my wife first got married 25 years ago, I'm negotiating. I got a realtor that I didn't know. I don't know where I found this woman, right? But I let her negotiate the deal, put it all together. The morning, and this was so long ago, I think I negotiated interest for 8.5%, right? And we thought that was tight. The morning of the closing, we get to the closing table, it's 9.5%, right? Realtor and the loan officer come talking some stuff about, they have because they do what they call Mr. Bremen, they run your credit right before. It's your last. They'll run a credit report, right? If your credit report expires before you close, they can run it again just to make sure you don't have any new debt or any new lates or any that kind of stuff.
Right.
So they ran the credit again, and the guy says, your score bounced a couple points and stuff like that. So in order to make the deal work, we need to bump the credit up a whole point, right? Because I didn't bring my dad to the table, I didn't know I was supposed to just get up, push all the papers on the floor, and leave, right? I went ahead and signed the papers. And what had happened, this was way back when they used to have something called yield spread, right? So the realtor and the loan officer were able to make from the lender by giving me a higher interest rate. They made another $5,000 or $6,000 that they got on the back end. It's not on the pay. It's not disclosed anywhere. That's illegal now, but back then it was totally legal. So I had to sit in that 9.5% until I made 6 payments, and then I was able to refi and get out of that. But that cost me more money than maybe not more, but had I known not to refinance, I would have sat in there for a long period of time. I do refis now. I've seen people that have been in houses for 20 years on a 9.5% interest, right?
All right. So let me cut you short right there, because that leads into another part of this conversation that we want to ask. Another misconception that you may hear is that people say
Mr. Britt, I didn't answer the question that was on the floor, though.
Okay.
There was a question on the floor. I don't want to cheat anybody. The question on the floor was, say it, read it. Can you pull it? Are you able to put it back up there? I think the person said, should I wait? Let me see. Would you say not rushing to buy a home since overlooking things can
Well,
be costly? Okay.
I answered that question. I think Mr. Britt had the question that wasn't answered.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so I was rolling to the next one. That question was, can you obtain a home loan with a low credit score? Most people think, hey, my credit's too low, I can't afford a
Absolutely.
house.
Absolutely. Let me just break it down so it can be broke. Lenders, their product is money, right? They have money for sale. They're going to sell you some money. The worse your credit is, the more expensive the money is. It's really that simple, right? Now there are limits to this stuff. Like I think the absolute worst you could have is probably a 500 score, right?
Okay.
I think
But you
so.
can do it, and it takes some effort to get a 500 credit score. I promise you that, right? You know what I'm saying? You got to really, really, really not try to pay nobody to get a 500 credit score, right?
Yeah.
But no, low credit scores won't keep you out of a house. What it'll do is it'll keep your payment higher. And if you got to, and since you have to qualify based on income to get into a house, what it does is it reduces your purchasing power, right?
Okay.
1% credit or interest rate is the difference of what is that, $50,000 in purchasing power, right? Well, depending
Wow.
on the higher you go, the worse it is, right?
Yeah.
So if your income to debt ratios and stuff like that, you can qualify for a $200,000 house. If your credit score takes a hit, you might only be able to qualify for 150,000. And I promise you, the neighborhood for $150,000 house ain't the same as one for 200, right? In this market, we probably be saying 300 to 400, but you get the
Yeah.
point, right?
Absolutely.
So managing and protecting. I mean, I look at my credit score probably 2 or 3 times a day, right? I got all kind of alerts. All my credit cards got alert when anything. If somebody sneeze on my stuff and poot on I know what's going on. I stay on it. I don't necessarily dispute stuff, but I call the creditors and start. I say, hey, what's up with this, right? Disputing ain't good, but I talk to my creditors on a regular basis, right? I saved
Okay.
so much money during COVID. I called everybody. I was like, look, man, my money is tight. Things are slow. I'm gonna need some relief. I want to make all my payments on time, but I just don't have enough. So can you roll back some of that interest? I got all my 19% interest down to 12, my 12's down to sevens, some of them 29s. I said, listen, we ain't gonna be able to do that. I'm gonna pay you off. I appreciate your business, right? When you tell a joker you're gonna pay them off and you stop paying them, they start listening to what you're saying. So there's a whole lot of stuff that we can do to boost it up. But there again is a long answer to your short question.
So that takes some conversations, as you can tell.
Yeah, you
All
got
right.
some conversation, man.
Gotcha. All right. So asking Ms. Going back to Dr. Darisha, we're gonna ask you the next question. All right. People say, because of experiences that you all have both named, a lot of people will say, hey, it's cheaper to rent than it is to own. What's your perception? Is that a misconception? What's your perception on that?
Is
That's
that
a
for
good
anybody?
question.
That's for
Yeah.
Dr. Darisha.
That's a good question, and Mr. Hashim can definitely chime in, when after me, whenever he wants to. But I would say I used to think like that before I became a homeowner. Like, oh, but that's just because I'm used to the military lifestyle, so I don't like staying in one place at one time. And I feel like when I buy a house, just like my first home now, I actually thought like, uh, next time, do I just want to rent? Because I like to move around so much. I don't like to be in one spot. And then if I buy a home, I got to sell that house before or rent it out. So I really feel like it just depends on your situation. But if you're trying to build wealth, I would definitely say buying a home is always worth it over renting, just because you have that equity. So you can pull, like, say you get into, like, your kid need to go to college or something in the future, something happens, you can pull money from your house, pull that equity from your house. So I would definitely say buying a house over renting is definitely worth it. Because
Okay.
at the end of the day, you're going to pay more renting. Like in Dallas, you know, you this house is, I saw, $3,000, $2,500. Where if you purchase the house, your mortgage is probably going to be only $1,700. So you're paying that extra $100 just to rent when you could just go purchase a home. So you have to make it make sense.
Right.
Okay.
If I could add to that, I would say
Go ahead, chime in.
it depends on what your personal short and long term goals are. If you know you're going to be in a city for less than 5 years, buying a house may not be the most powerful thing you can do with your money, depending on how much you put into it, right?
Okay.
And then different stages in life. Like I'm at the stage, man, all my kids are grown, right? I had this big old 5-bedroom house, man. I had 2 air conditioners on it, man, and all this, everything is expensive, and I don't use none of it, right? So depending on where you are in life, like it might be cheaper for me, man. I live close to the airport, close to Dallas Stadium. I'm like, I can make more money in Airbnb. I can triple what I paid. Well, maybe 4 times what I pay in mortgage, right? It might make more sense for me to rent because I just don't want to sleep outside. You feel me? I'm not in my house for ego no more. I'm way past all that stuff, right? So I can turn my primary residence into an income property, right? And create another stream of revenue. And then I just stay somewhere where I'm sleeping and I don't have to do no maintenance. I ain't got to deal with the taxes. I don't have to do none of that stuff, right? So it depends on what your goals are and where you are in the mix. But Mr. Brim hit it, and so did Doc right up at the top. The equity is where the wealth generation is, right? The equity, I mean, I know some of you might disagree. I keep a line of credit on my equity and I use it for whatever I need to do, right? And so, for instance, I could take a $50,000 line of credit. And if I max it out, my maximum payment is $400 on 50 grand, right? If I got a credit card with a $15,000 balance and my payment is $500. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's when it, look, we
that's,
got to be way more.
That's purchase and usage power right there.
Money. So the thing that the issue that I find in our community is we taking advice from the wrong people, right? White folks get on TV and tell you stuff, man, and it's all true, but it don't work for us. We don't have we don't have the complexion for the connection. Let's just keep it real, right? And since we're not set up in the economy the same way, we get out there and be doing stuff. We be naked, all out in the world, can't do nothing, can't move. We froze out and stuff like that. So we have to be way more creative with the financial instruments that we have, especially when it comes to real estate, right? I almost would tell somebody, listen, if you're going to buy something, buy you a multifamily first.
Right.
Right? If you can buy 4 doors, buy 4. If you can buy 3, buy 3. If you can buy 2, buy 2. And if you can't buy none of them, buy 1. Buy something and turn that sucker into a bank, right? If you rent an apartment and somebody pay your house off, the house is going to be worth way more to you because now you can turn that equity into your personal financing bank. You can take that money and stretch it out as long as you're paying your bills, right? And you could take $100,000 line of credit and go buy 3 houses, and them 3 houses could triple what you make it. And I'm not making this stuff up. This ain't even difficult, right?
Now, before you go on, because we got questions up here. Now we can tie this question into this as well. Mr. Lee Lambert asked, how much time should be allocated to perform the due diligence? In other words, if we got this, I'm about to make this purchase, how long should I wait before I pull the trigger on making this purchase? All right. So now is the time. Yeah. Everything is about now, man. I mean, look, we sit around, be contemplating all kind of stuff, and then we make decisions with our lives with far less thought and discussion. You'll jump in the car drunk and drive, but you'll sit down there and won't pull the trigger on some real estate. Come on, man. The time is always now.
Time is now. And
it's always now.
Just to go in a little more detail on that, if you're meaning as far as, I know we were talking about home inspections and things earlier. When you go to purchase a property, you want to get a home inspection. Those could be done within 5 to 7 days. All the professionals are moving at that pace.
Yeah.
And just to add to that topic a little bit more, a home inspection is generally what you get to protect you as the buyer. The appraiser protects the lender. So that's the main difference between the two. The appraisal protects the lender.
Thanks for making that distinction. That's the important part.
The home inspection
for the lender, not for you. You pay for it, but it's for the lender.
So going into detail, helping somebody figure that out. So if you didn't realize that if their realtor was playing both sides of the fence, all right. So just go a little bit more into that, Dennis Rim. am I taking a suggestion of who I want to inspect this house, or am I going to talk to someone in the city? How do I find my inspector for that house?
Well, if you have a good licensed professional, they should have a network of inspectors that they've dealt with in the past that have been vetted.
Okay.
Yeah, so they should be able to provide you a list of inspectors. And, you know, I would be careful if anybody only gives you one person.
Right.
You
You
know,
have
Ooh.
you
Man,
want to give them
tell
two
them,
to
man,
three
lay it out.
truthful.
Tell them people the truth, man.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
name
yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Mr. Hashim, you kind of answered this last question. I mean, you answered this next question with the last kind of question that you got, but I believe there's more to this. All right. And Brim, I come to you on this one first, and y'all can pass the mic on this one. This is about interest rates. A lot of people have misconception of I'm going to wait to purchase because everything started rising when COVID hit. Interest rates kind of jumped up a little bit, and a lot of people are waiting to purchase because they feel, hey, I'm gonna wait for the market to drop before I make a purchase and interest rates to drop. What is your perception? We're gonna start with Brim and then pass the mic if you got to add to for people that are waiting for interest rates to drop right now.
Yep. Well, you know, that's something I touched on earlier as well when I said time in the market trumps. Well, I won't use that word. I'll say time in the market beats timing the market. That's the concept there. And the thing is, if you buy now at a higher interest rate, if the interest rates drop, you can refinance later. So that's
Okay.
item A. Item B is if you buy now at a higher interest rate, then you're likely going to get a better price on the home because people buy by payment, not by price. I repeat,
Oh,
people buy a home or property by payment, not by price. So if the property is priced um, at a certain level, is because of where the interest rate is. So you, well, I guess you get where I'm going with that. So it makes sense to buy now, even if the price is higher, lock in that rate because when the rates drop, the prices are going to go up, and you're going to pay more for that house.
okay.
So that's why it's beneficial to you to get in now.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that, or did he hit the nail on the head?
Yeah, and the important thing when it comes to because you can only pay for what you can afford, right? If your monthly budget allows for you to make a $2,400 payment, it don't matter what the rate is, or the price is. All you can pay is $2,400, right? And typically, if you wait longer, that $2,400 is going to buy less house, right? Now, where the rate matters. So let's say, for instance, you got a $200,000 purchase, 30-year mortgage at 6.5%, right? I'm just throwing in the same amount of taxes and insurance. That's a payment of $1,700, and I'm just throwing in some taxes and insurance, right? At 6.5%. At 5.5%, that same house is $1,625. At 7.5%, that same payment is $1,887, right? So depending on which way that rate goes is going to determine your affordability, because that's what we're really talking about. The underwriters are going to qualify you for a house based on affordability. How much can you afford to pay? Because what the bank is saying is, look, I'm about to give you $500,000, and I want to make sure that you can pay me back at least 5 years so I can make back my profit, right? So that's the part of this that's important to capture when we look at this stuff is waiting later. Because here's the thing that you might miss. We bought a house in the middle of COVID, right? Like it was hard to get anybody to look at it. It was hard to get an inspection, any of that kind of stuff, right? Interest rates weren't terrible. No, the interest rates were actually pretty good because this is before, because 22 is when the rates just start skyrocketing. So we bought, the interest rate was good, inventory was low, so the prices were going up and you were bidding wars on properties, right? And so we purchased, I think we might have put 5 or 10% down on this particular property. We were able to get a conventional loan without PMI, with that little amount of down payment. Within 6 months of me moving in, I was able to refi for a lower rate and pull equity out and still had a payment lower than what I started with.
Wow.
That's what I'm. Because see, the thing is, the market appreciation in most cases is going to appreciate faster than the cost of purchasing. So staying out of the market costs you more money than getting in the market and taking a higher payment, because in most cases you can do what's called a streamline, right? And the streamline refi says that as long as you can save $50 on the payment, you can dang near do a refi almost with no cost or with the cost rolled into the loan, right? The game gets real nice once you get in, but if you don't get in the game, you don't get to play.
Gotcha. See, this is why we got you on the panel to break this down and explain it. You said one thing that hits this next misconception right on the head. All right. So anybody, Dr. Daranisha will ask you to chime in on this one first. I have to have a huge down payment to get a house. Is that a misconception? Most people feel I have to come up with 10, 20, 30, $40,000 before they even allow me to get a house. What's your take on that?
Well, I think I give you like a brief statement. I think Mr. Hashim could go into it more deeper since he does the finances. But they do have down payment assistance programs out there. So I know a lot of people don't have $5,000 or $10,000. Now I do tell people, if you're looking to buy a house, at least have like $15,000 saved up in the bank or something. But a lot of people don't have that. I mean, we're just stating the economy of where we're at right now. So, I tell people, well, if you do, I know there is a couple of down payment assistance programs, but people get misconstrued. Down payments and closing costs are totally different. So you still have to have money to cover your closing costs. Now, yes, you can, roll the closing costs to the back of the loan. It's different avenues where you don't have to, or have help with paying your closing costs. But I would definitely look into down payment assistance programs, ask your lender, whoever you're working with, hey, because they'll ask you, do you have any money to put down? Be honest. I understand a lot of people, even dealing with clients, when I ask them, hey, what's your credit score? What's your income? And they look at me like, oh, I don't want to tell my credit score. So I think you have to be very honest about where you're at in the home buying process, but also, just prepare yourself, because if you're going to buy a house, then you should be financially and mentally prepared anyways. So, at the end of the day, when I went to buy my house, I bought my house in 2021, 2022. 2021. So, but I prepared myself 2 years before I bought my house. Like, yeah, I knew I wanted to buy a house, but financially I was not there yet. So I worked my way up until I was able to buy a house. So I always tell my clients, you may not be ready now, but a deny does not mean that in the future you can't buy. It doesn't mean a no. So you just have to really just look at it at that perspective.
And I would like to add, if you're a special person, which doctor is, sometimes you can buy a house with no money down. You want to talk on that?
That's how I bought mine. No
Yeah.
money down.
No money down. Okay, so go into that. How
We'll
was it?
speak
How
on
was
that.
it possible?
Well, I had a VA loan.
The VA
So
loan.
you got to think about it. I love VA loans. I love working with clients with VA loans. So I had a VA loan. So of course we don't have to do the down payments. It just depends on what type of loan you have. Now I did have closing costs, but what the seller agreed, they agreed. Basically, I rolled my closing costs to the back of the loan, so it made my purchase price a little bit higher. But at the end of the day, I came out not paying anything. Actually, I went to the closing table and I got a check back because they gave me like a flooring allowance. So, that's there's a lot of things when it comes to these deals and how your realtor negotiates it. So, I actually did not have to pay nothing for my house, but I had money saved up. So let's keep that in mind. I did have money saved up, so the money that I had saved up, I used that money to just furnish my new home. So it's all about what type of loan you have, and FHA, conventional, those government loans, USDA, FHA, VA, those are all different standards, and I could really go in when it comes to those, but it really just depends, and you should just get with your lender. Get with a lender that's going to actually break it down to you, the terms, and help you.
So
Gotcha.
if I
Okay.
can add just a little taste on there, because the next question is a good question.
I was just about to say, tie this next question into what you're about to respond to.
So when you think about purchasing a home, right, you definitely can buy a house with little to no money out of pocket, right? But you don't really want to do that if you don't have to. The VA loan is a special benefit for our veterans and active service members, right? It's a loan that got superpowers on it, and I love VA loans because I love veterans, right? And I love active service members. I'm the son of a Vietnam vet, so I do a lot of VA loans. You know, the VA allows you, you don't have to, but they allow you to do 100% financing, and then they allow you to roll most of the closing costs into the deal. And then if you get the seller to contribute some of their proceeds to the deal, it's even sweeter. A lot of vets, I've done a lot of purchase deals for vets, and they got to the closing table. They only let you take 2,000, but I'll do it like make sure they get like $1,800, right? Because to your point, Doc, once you move into that new house, I don't care if you had a house, an apartment with beautiful furniture. For some reason, when you move into a new house, that furniture look old, right? You put that furniture and it don't look right, right? It be clashing with the walls and stuff like that. So you don't want to move into a house with no reserves, right? So now you're going to get, based on the way that the loans are put together, you won't have a payment. In most cases, you won't have a payment that first month. And for VA loans, you usually don't have a payment for 2 months, right? If you close at the right time, you can go 2 months without before you make your first mortgage payment, right? So that usually and it's kind of designed that way to give you a break. The more money you have to go towards closing costs and down payment, the better your deal can be. Right now, the market has introduced a lot of exotic loans, right? So my company just introduced 100% FHA loan. It just came out yesterday, right? I haven't even printed the docs yet because I'm like, I can't wait to get in the market and start. I'm gonna be slinging it like dope. You need one of these, And the thing is this: traditionally, if you look at it, I don't know what the sophistication level is of the audience, but just look at it this way. Your garden variety of loans is going to be a FHA loan, which is backed by the government, right? Federal Housing Authority. A VA loan, the only way you can get a VA loan is you got to be an active service member, you got to be a vet. Otherwise, you can't get it, right? Or surviving spouse of a vet or something like that. Then you have your conventional loans and USDA. Now they got some stuff where you could be a gig worker, right? Like a Uber driver, and you can qualify with 2 years of bank statements, no tax returns. Like they got a whole bunch of really cool stuff out there. But those things require you to have pretty strong credit scores. And typically they're going to want you to have 20%. It might even be for reserve. 20% is a lot of cash, right? When the pandemic came through, one of the things that the government did was they lowered the cost of private mortgage insurance, right? So before, if you were buying conventional, right, you got to bring 20% or you're going to be paying mortgage insurance, right? I don't know if you want to get into that, but now you can buy 5% down, no mortgage insurance, 1%. Citibank has a product that's 1% down, no private mortgage insurance. You just have to have strong credit. So what's happening is the market is adjusting because the interest rates are higher than they've been in 20 years. And the speed in which they went up is higher than it has ever gone up, right? I've never seen 4-point swing any time in my career. So because of that, now they've introduced more stuff because, again, money is the product. And if there's nobody buying houses because the rates are too high, there's no money to make. So there's a few more things to go, but the general rule.
So swing that in, and I apologize if I interrupted. Swing that into the last question we got, which said, hey, if I have home ownership, I should be looking at interest rates and be willing to refi. Would that be true for homeowners? I should be looking at different interest rates just to possibly refinance my home?
So there's a couple things to look at when it comes to refi. Depends on how long you've been in there and what your rate is. So, for instance, I got 2% on mine. I'm not doing anything. It doesn't make sense for me to do anything. 2% is not, I don't know if that's ever coming back, right? It was a anomaly to begin with. I don't think it's ever coming back. So I'm stuck, but I don't mind because I can do stuff on the back end, right? I can do seconds and all that kind of stuff. But for a typical person, if you came in at 7.5% and the market is now saying you can get a rate at 5.5%, it makes sense to refi only if you're going to stay in that house to absorb the cost of doing the refi, because the refi is not free, right? You're going to have to do title, all the stuff that you did on the front end, other than down payments, you're going to have to pay those fees again. And if the cost to do the refi isn't absorbed by the amount of time you expect to live in the house, it don't make sense to do it. So for instance, let's say the money I'm going to save by refiing is $100 a month, right? So that's $1,200 a year. Right, you do 1,200 times. What's 1,200 times 5? I'm good at math, but I want to make sure y'all know how to do it too. So watch this.
Mhm.
1,200
60.
times 5, that's
Seven.
6 grand,
Oh,
right?
60. Yeah.
That's 6,000. Okay. The first thing I'm gonna ask you if you want to refi, I'm gonna say, what's your intent with this property? You're gonna be in it for 5 years. If you got small kids, you could maybe be in a good school district, or you might be in a bad school district and you want to get out. If you're gonna leave in 3 years, the cost savings ain't there, right? Because you're gonna spend more to refi and you're not gonna be able to recapture the money because you got to use your equity, right, to pay for it, or you got to pay for it out of pocket. So um, everything comes down to what your intentions are. If you're going to be in that property at least 5 years, maybe 10 years, that's one reason. The other thing is, if you intend to stay in that property, you should do two things: refinance it and then change it from, like, if you're in a 30-year loan now, if you refinance it into, like, from a 30 to a 15, your payment might actually go up $100 instead of going down $100. But guess what? You just knocked off 7 to 10 years off your loan, right? And if that don't make sense, you can get really fly. You just ask your lender, call Mr. Brim and say, okay, listen, man, I want to pay my house off faster, but I don't want to refi. What is it? What kind of payment would I have to make an additional principal to have a 15-year payoff on a 30-year mortgage? You're going to look it up. You're going to say, okay, if you pay an additional $300 a month, you're going to save 7 years in interest. Does that make sense?
It does.
The game is told when we get creative, right? So hopefully that answers the question.
All right, so can we get that question back up there? I want to know who's willing to take this next question. Then we're gonna close things out as we getting close to the top of the hour. Should I sell my current home to move into a new build home, into a new community that will generate more equity while increasing my mortgage?
I would
I'm
say
No.
yeah,
No.
I think we all go in the same place with this.
No.
You
No.
keep your existing home and use it as a
Yeah.
rental property is
Yep.
what you want to do. And
Yeah, man. It's nah. I mean, I don't. The market is in such a way, and I think everybody agrees that this is not a time to sell your property to go buy another one, right? Because the cost of purchase is going to get. It's not going to go as far. The price. If you've been in your house 5 years, the pricing, just inflation itself, is going to absorb whatever you would, unless you're downsizing, unless you're getting a smaller property. No, I can't. That don't even make sense. I would no. My answer is no. I'm firm no.
I think we got to know from everybody on this one.
Let me go. I'm a no yes
Okay.
or yes no, however you want to look at it.
Okay.
What I would say is your current house that you're in, you want to use that as a rental property, and depending on the community and the trajectory, it may be a yes that you do buy that new construction. I'll give you an example of a buddy of mine. Uh, he just built the house. Now these are large numbers, but he went under contract. I think it was 3 million, and as the house was getting built, people were coming by looking at it, and somebody offered him 5 million for the house before he even closed on it. So he ended up really selling them the house for 5 million. And my numbers might be off because when we had the conversation, he told me he pocketed 1 million. And maybe he pocketed 1 million, did something else with 1 million, but whatever it is, he told me he pocketed 1 million.
Right.
And some of
And
the taxes goes on the sale.
and that's just the opportunity cost of making the right move. So not every move is a good move, but if you have somebody who knows the different areas and knows the trajectory, a trusted professional, it could be a good move. It could be a good move.
And that's the case that you just brought up that happens more frequently than you might imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are, especially if you look in the Metroplex, we got a bunch of brand new communities going up, right? So there are certain pockets and ethnic groups of people who go in and they're the first people to buy in a community, and they never move into the house, right? So builder, like right now, you guys hip to DR Horton's got this amazing sale going on. They got like 500 houses they're trying to get rid of in the next like 15 days or something, right? So they're giving these incredible incentives. So they have folks that'll go out and take advantage of all of these discounts and all this builder stuff, right? and they'll just wait for the community to continue to be built, because the more houses built, the properties are going to appreciate. Right? Once the builder closes out and they have no more inventory, now they put that house on the market. They made money without even moving in. That is actually a strategy that I see a
Exactly.
lot. So to your point, that's an excellent point. That's a whole
Exactly.
other, right?
Awesome.
And
So
that's what the majority of my clients do.
Right.
I see this as being a part two, because we got some more misconceptions to address, but we are at the top of the hour. So I need two things from you. All right. I need a final word. I need y'all to keep it short for me, though. We need a final word, and we need to know how anybody that's listening can get in contact with you. All right. We'll start with Miss Dr. Darisha. Give them a final word, a bit of advice, a tip, the best thing you can take away to be able to give somebody some information and give them information on how they can contact you, whether it be phone number, email, website, whatever, social media. Let them know how they can reach out and contact you.
Okay, well, my contact information, as you can see, realtor tsk@gmail.com. That is my email address. Also, I am on Facebook, so you can, if you want, information, just email me and I'll give you my contact information. But I want to leave everybody with, if you don't ask, you won't know. So knowledge is power. You really have to, in real estate, it can be a cutthroat game for people, for first-time home buyers who don't know. So you really have to get you somebody that you can trust, that knows the market, that knows the laws about real estate, and that's going to be honest with you. And I would tell people, just do your research. Do your research on the realtor that you choose, and make sure that when you're ready to buy a home, that it's a decision that you're comfortable with and you're secured with. Because the way that the economy is, if you cannot afford to purchase a home, then I would not say buy a home right now, because you're just going to put yourself in more debt. And I want to see everybody buy a house, because at the end of the day, we have that freedom and right. And I want everybody to be homeowners. So I would just definitely just say, do your research and ask around, and just make sure that you're making the right move when it comes to purchasing a home. And any misconceptions that you may have, just ask somebody. Ask a realtor, ask somebody that's been in the game for a long time. So that way you won't get, tied up in any of these deals where you may have to go to court.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that. Mr. Brim, you want to go next?
Yeah.
Last word and contact.
Okay. My last word, and I guess I've been keeping with the same theme the whole way through, and it's don't wait. Don't wait. You buy land and wait. You don't wait and buy land. You know, yeah. So you take that action and then wait it out and take advantage of that smart move you made.
Awesome.
And if you want more tips like that, you can reach me at 708. I'll give you my phone number. And I made it easy for you. Remember my name? You remember my number. It's 708-955-BRIM. 708-955-BRIM, which is 2746. Or you can ask any of your neighborhood IOTAs about the real estate IOTA. They'll get you to me.
There you go.
Yes. Yes, and Mr. Britt has my contact information as well. So if anybody needs my number, it's 430-274-7737. And I think Mr. Brim is trying to get the word time is of the essence. So remember that word, you guys, because that is important when it comes to real estate.
There you go. You're absolutely right. Mr. Hashim, final word, contact.
It's going to be 15 seconds. So
all right.
All right. So my father said, son, don't sit in the driveway with your car idling, waiting for all the lights to turn green before you start driving. You got to put that joke in reverse so you can go forward. I think I agree with all that we shared is necessary. We just don't have to wait. If you want to get in contact with me, I dropped some stuff here on the chat, but I think that's just our private chat. I'm super easy to find. I'm the only Hashim Malik Bey, I think, on the planet. I might be the only one on the planet, so I'm super easy to find. You can Google me, go to LinkedIn. All my stuff is out there. But if you're inclined to call, that's fine. You can reach me at 940-366-9970. I got to figure out how to get my stuff like Bram. I like that. I'm going to do my what do you call that? My R&D, my rob and duplicate.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get it
Yeah.
figured out. But that's all I got, man. This was an exciting time. Hopefully, we provided some value.
Absolutely, absolutely. I hope appreciate all you guests that attended. If you've got questions, you can still post your questions in the comment section, and we'll make sure they get to these participants. That way, we can get those questions answered for you. My name is Lyndon Britt. I'm a licensed financial professional, and one of the things I do is once these professionals help you get into the home, I help you protect it and keep it. All right, and build a legacy from it. So I'm tied into this just a little bit more, but just not in this aspect. So we appreciate you all. Thank you to all of our panelists that shared again, spent your time being able to share this information with people. And you all have a blessed and wonderful evening.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.